Jim Langfelder. I'd like to welcome everybody that joined us for the Facebook Live. And yep, we appreciate, and that's Alderman Fulgenzi, who's one of our guests, which we appreciate. And really, we're continuing the conversation and the engagement with the public as much as possible to really bring people up to speed on the COVID-19 as we enter now into phase three of the governor's plan, and how we move forward as a community together and help one another out, support one another while keeping everybody safe and moving that direction. So a couple of items with regards to the phase three is with respect to the exciting part of expanding the restaurants. Now they're able to go from the grab and go to open up to, it's a curbside. They can add to outdoor seating and moving in that direction. And so that is really a helpful shot in the arm for, our local restaurants that need that. And then also for retailers, we know the Walmarts and the larger box stores were able to provide services all this time. Now the retailers, the locally owned ones, are open for business, and we'd appreciate everybody's help in supporting them, because what's important, those local dollars are recycled through our community, at least 7 times. There's various aspects out there, but what's important, they do employ our neighbors, the owners, support us in many different ways with contributing back to our community. And then as importantly are the tax dollars generated from the sales, or the property taxes generated to pay for our public works crews to fix roads, fire department to protect us, police department, and all operations of the city. So it's essential that we can do what we can to support one another, but shop locally as much as possible. So with that, the other thing with regards to downtown in specific, we are continuing the free parking where you don't have to plug the meter through the end of the month. But you do have to remember the purpose of parking meters is to move traffic along. So we don't have a lot of workers downtown taking up those parking spaces where there's nobody or no place to park to support our restaurants or our retail stores. So it's important that we are offering the free parking, but if you're working downtown, we'd appreciate that you go to your assigned spot in your parking lot location and leave the parking available to the shoppers or the visitors that would come downtown, so we can generate that foot traffic that's needed to support the downtown businesses. The other thing that has opened up downtown is the curbside pickup or drop off for library services. So that's going on right now, and you can do that, I think up until 5 o'clock, drop off your books or do pickup. And then if you have questions on that, you can call the city's general number at 789-2000. or go to our website at springfield.il.us for more information. And the Municipal Center complex is open to foot traffic, limited access to a degree. If you have an appointment or need to get to a upper floor, it's good to call first, make that appointment. But with the regular day-to-day foot traffic of making sure that you can pay your utility bill or a parking ticket or get a license or something of that nature, that's opened up on a regular basis. So you do have to wear your face covering where it covers your nose and mouth when you're in a public location, or if you're in close proximity to somebody else within 6 feet, you're supposed to use the face covering as much as possible. So those are the main items to go over. And what we'll do is, again, I'll introduce the aldermen, they'll introduce the guests that they brought. And again, the focus mainly is on our business reopening, how we can support one another, the challenges we've all faced, and how we move from that as a forward. And then after they give the introductions, what we'll do is take questions. So if you would type through your email, Facebook Live, and move forward in that direction. But first, I'd like to introduce Alderman Fulgenzi, John Fulgenzi. A lot of you might know him from his restaurant, Fulgenzi's, right across from the fairgrounds. They've been a mainstay of our community for a long period of time. Great supporter of Route 66. And really, he has this unique experience of bringing not only his business sense to the city council, but also he served on the county board and brings that aspect. So that's a great wealth of knowledge when you have a multi-layered, faceted knowledge from the private sector to the public sector. And he's been a common sense approach Alderman, which I really appreciate. So, Alderman Fulgenzi, if you'd like to say a few words on how the pandemic has challenged you, not only as a maybe a business owner, but as an alderman, and some of the things you've heard, how it's impacted your area, and then introduce your guests, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Basically, I don't have a lot to say as far as I never do, but anyway, as far as a personal introduction, I'm basically my wife and Sandy and myself, and our 3 sons, and the grandchildren, 6 grandchildren. But what it amounts to is our business has been here since May of '79. Some of you may know it started out as Custard Castle, and we changed the name back in '88, I think. Time escapes me. But right now, we're in this pandemic, and we're switched to drive-in only. And our business is down about 50%, which I'm sure most other ones are about the same, except maybe some of the grocery stores. I've heard they're packed. But it's something that we all have to work through. It's something that happens, and we can't change it per se, but we can limit their effect on us. And it's something that we all have to experience. And I'm sure some of my other guests will do the same thing. And one of the things I'd like to mention before we go any further is we're going to have a free pizza giveaway sponsored by Joe Davis on Saturday afternoon starting at 2 o'clock. He's going to give away 100 free pizzas, 7-inch pizzas, to the first 100 people to come here, because he realizes that there's hunger on the east side, west side, east side, north, and that's one of the things he'd like to do. And he owns Davis Mechanical. So, and some of you may know Joe. He lives out on North 8th Street Road. He's a very good friend of mine. But I'd like to introduce my daughter-in-law, Annette Fulgenzi, who's the county board member of District 17. And Annette, did you want to say anything? Or how did we want to do this?
Yes, that's great.
Hi, I'm Annette Fulgenzi, and I represent District 17, which is the north end, kind of out by the airport, as well, little parts of Sherman. And I'm here to answer any questions that might come up, maybe from the county perspective. And I have had some experience in dealing with a lot of business questions recently in my day job, so I might be able to add some answers that may come up as well.
Yeah, one day I will ask both of you is with regards to, Fulgenzi is a family-run business. I've enjoyed lunch there, and usually you see family members there. And I know for my family, it's kind of tough because you have to keep that social distance. And if you could what's that mean from not only a personal side of things, from the family aspect, that social distancing, but also from your customer base? How challenging is that? And, moving through the days and the weeks and trying to support one another. If you'd just expound upon that a little bit, that'd be great. So I don't know if Annette, you want to share anything, okay, or John, Alderman, sure, if you'd like to, or.
Oh, were you talking to me?
If you'd like to share any insight on how you felt social distancing's impacted, because you live at the restaurant and, spend a lot of time there, and not being able to see the customers and how that's changed things or the challenges of that.
Yeah, it's something that we used to have 10, 12 people come here every night. And the social distancing has affected that because they don't come here anymore. And it's something that we try and stay 6 feet apart in the restaurant. We get maybe 4 people in here and just to visit. And we're trying to expand our patio to accommodate them. So we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
It has been difficult for the family too. We're a very close family, and my kids love seeing grandma and grandpa. And we missed birthdays. We had a niece's first birthday we missed. We missed Sandy's birthday, Easter. I think that about killed Sandy. She's a big holiday person. So and keeping my kids, whenever we would go, just stand in the parking lot to say hi, realizing they can't go, touch grandma and grandpa. We want to make sure they're safe. And, that's a struggle that all families are going through as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, even though we're elected officials or serve in a capacity of different magnitude, when it comes down to it, this has impacted us all the same way, especially when it comes to that being able to connect individually one-on-one with our family members or friends. And that's why it's important to continue to work together to, show that support verbally as best we can and move forward. But next, I'd like to move with Alderman McMenamin, or introduce Alderman Joe McMenamin of Ward 7, and appreciate you joining us. And Alderman McMenamin, he's like a bulldog. I appreciate Alderman McMenamin because he always, challenges us to do better, and that's what it's all about. It doesn't matter if you're a resident or a city council member or treasurer, or clerk, or mayor. We should always strive to do better. And Alderman McMenamin challenges us to do that. Most people know that when he brings up the pensions, he's known for that. And it's good that we pay our bills and operate within our means and look towards the future. And that's what it's all about. So he's a great advocate, independent voice on the city council, and that's invaluable from that regard. So Alderman McMenamin, if you'd share with us, your perspective of the coronavirus and how that's impacted not only you or your area, and then introduce your guests, that would be great.
Thank you, Mayor. This is my 10th year on the city council. I can't think of any time period that's been more challenging than what we're facing right now for a cumulative number of reasons. I also am very happy to be on live Facebook this morning, particularly with John Fulgenzi, because he and I are the two self-employed aldermen on the city council. I think the other aldermen are basically current city employees or retired, current government employees or retired government employees. So John and I have a kind of a unique perspective on things. Ward 7 is a very strong neighborhood ward, middle income and above neighborhood, owner occupied. We do have two very large apartment areas, including over 2,000 units along Seven Pines Road. So we've got a mixture of housing. We've got one manufacturing facility next to VFW on Old Jack Road, and their parking lot has remained pretty active with their employees during the COVID period. What we do have in Ward 7 are significant retail centers along MacArthur Boulevard, along Wabash, Route 4, and Chatham Road. And so that's where I think we have to look for impact. I did invite others to this meeting, including Hy-Vee store director. I think that's an example, Hy-Vee, of a store that, as others have mentioned, is doing maybe perhaps better sales than before COVID. He had another, I think, corporate Zoom this morning, so he couldn't participate. Also invited the mall director, the mall manager, Clay Emmerich. And of course, that's an example of a very significant reduced to zero sales situation out at the mall. And so, and they're in the process of starting up. And of course, national events have impeded or impacted their startup, their reopening. And he couldn't participate also because of other Simon Properties activities. Fortunately, we had backups and backups. So David Anderson of the Corkscrew Wine Emporium, that's an example of a business. And David, you can explain this, where actually your sales maybe are even better than they were prior to COVID. And you've got some questions about how to go into phase 3 and the outdoor seating. And now VFW 755 and Rick Kendall, VFW, and you'll be able to explain this, Rick. basically VFW shut down as a restaurant and as a tavern, but now is in the process of reopening with 20 employees. VFW did get a PPP loan, and we're trying to take advantage, Mayor, of the emergency powers and authorizations you're giving for the reopening and outdoor seating. And Rick can talk about that. So with that, I'd like to go first to David, because you're the first one to say for sure, yes, you can participate. So thanks a lot, David, this morning.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, my wife and I, Danielle and I, bought the Corkscrew back in September of 2016. And we have a quite loyal following. So when this all came about in the middle of March, we were very excited that we were deemed an essential business, because as customer after customer comes in, they say, we are so glad you're an essential business. So we've kind of redesigned a few things. We have been open since the very beginning of the restrictions, but we immediately instituted curbside and delivery for customers. We get online orders. They can go online here in town and put in an order, and they can pick it up, or we can deliver if they're in the city of Springfield. So that's been very, very popular, and it's something we'll probably continue. In fact, we will continue whenever all of this is finally over. Another thing that we've had is since we've in April of 2017, we're part of what's called the Vivino app. So we can ship within the state of Illinois. So we've been getting quite a few orders, obviously, as people are sitting at home with nothing to do, and they look and they find out what wine we have, and we were able to ship those. And so that's been a very big boon. Yeah, and an answer or a firm affirmation of what Joe said. Yes, we're actually have had more sales in these 2.5 months than we had, say, from a year ago, which is good. Well, what we found is, and we have ways of finding, we have our computer system when somebody was last in. We've had a lot of people that have been coming back here that have not been in the store for several years, which is good. I think, Mayor, that's something encouraging using local, and that's what we've heard time and time again from people. We want to use local, and we try to encourage people when they're here to buy local, because it does, as you said, the 7 times over. One thing that we have not been able to do is have our Fridays at 5, which is a very popular thing. People are itching to get back to that, which in the store we'll have wine by the glass available, or people could, because we have a dual license, a tavern and a packaged liquor license, where they can come in, sit down at tables with their friends and have a nice evening. But obviously we can't do that, so we're looking forward to that. We're hoping that we can get back to that in phase 4, I believe, as I've read it. If we can get 50 people in here and limit it to that, that'll be the challenge. The outside seating, we're not ready to really get into that, because if it's just a temporary thing, Mr. Mayor, we don't want to put in the time and the expense of getting that all done. If it's somehow expanded and the requirement for 60% of your sales of food to have outdoor seating, if that were to change, then that would help us quite a bit, really. The other thing that's exciting for us is, and I think you all from Mr. Mayor and the councilman know, we are actually moving next door to where the old Pizza Hut was, and then another suite there next to it, because a local bank next to us wants this space to put some other offices in. So you all, thank you for allowing us to do that, and it's going to allow us to have a fresh face. Not that it's bad, but it's just kind of nice to have something new, and we're looking forward to that. Hopefully the first part of the fall, by the time we get building permits and all the construction done on the inside. So, but that's where we've been at, and we look forward to continuing on. Obviously, we're doing all the disinfecting as customers are in. We rarely have more than 2 or 3 people in the store at one time. That's been good. And I will say this, and I've told people this, I see the people in Springfield and in this county at least have been very respectful about wearing their face coverings. Very few of our people come in without them. They're not coming in if they're sick. I think in 2.5 months, I've heard one person sneeze in here, which is kind of, incredible. But I think the people of Springfield have behaved very well on trying to keep this thing down and to get it eliminated. So that's where I'm at.
Thanks, Dave. If you'd go ahead and do the intro, Joe, with Rick too.
Rick is quartermaster for VFW 755. That's his part-time job, which is sometimes a full-time job. Rick is former active duty, and he's also a civilian employee managing heating and air conditioning systems out at Camp Lincoln. And Rick's taken a lot of initiative. He's one of our newer, younger members at the VFW post that, he got the PPP loan. Rick, you can talk about. You bought a tent and put up a very large tent for the new period we're going into. So, Rick, please describe how it's been with 20 employees and when you had to shut down for 2.5 months.
Well, of course, running a bar/restaurant that serves food, everything about drinking and eating is usually about socializing. So, of course, the social distancing and the closing down has made an impact on us. First couple of weeks, we did close down before we opened up for curbside, just to kind of analyze the downfall of how quickly our financials can kind of run through during the time. And we learned quite quickly how very quickly your finances can go through. So we opened back up for curbside. I want to thank the community for coming out and supporting us. It's been doing pretty well. It's been keeping us with our heads above water. So again, I want to thank the community and the city of Springfield for coming out and supporting the VFW 755 and the veterans and the members and the families that it does help out and support. We did currently recently just open up to outdoor dining and drinking. We did purchase a tent that is approximately 30 by 60. So it does hold a pretty good area. We also did get the SBA PPP loan, which has allowed us to bring on all of our staff and actually kind of boost staff and boost the amount of employees that we have working at the time to try to get them back working and, try to recoup some of the funds that they have lost while they were, in the shutdown period. So it's going to be great for business. And this is good to open back up and see a good, 60% of our business coming back, not to mention, of course, gaming and stuff like that, ain't being introduced back into our revenue yet, but just being able to know that we're going to be okay and move ahead forward with it is a sigh of relief to us, the employees, and I'm sure all the veterans that we support in the community.
Well, we appreciate your service and what VFW does because it's important that we do support the veterans. We can't thank them enough because we live in the very freedoms of today. Thanks for your great service. So you too, Alderman McMenamin, I know you're a service member, so we appreciate that. And I'm not sure if Dave is, or I don't think Alderman Fulgenzi is, but we appreciate the service. And with that, the one aspect both you brought up is, yeah, go ahead.
If I could just jump in, because I'm a
Sure.
business professional too, and I just want to speak for lawyers what this impact has been. I
That's good.
was a tax
Right.
litigation attorney up until I deployed to Afghanistan in 2003 and 2004. And when I came back, I modified my practice to basically limited it to estate planning. So during this time period, for example, currently I've got I wrote a lot of wills over the course of time, military wills and civilian wills. So currently, for example, I've got 2 elderly employees that have aggressive brain cancer. So there's complications getting into a hospital to visit your clients and to update documents. I've got a number of elderly clients that I would visit regularly in their homes. So now you have to kind of modify your practices because you want to maintain that social distancing, because the last thing you want to do is infect an elderly person that may be healthy, but you want to keep them that way. I've got a client at a nursing home that so far is free of COVID. I meet with her every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Through her window using a tablet, And so as attorneys, we try to maintain our obligations and our responsibilities to our clients. And at the courthouse, they've basically been shut down the last 2.5 months. You can't go in there and file a will easily or ask a judge to issue any kind of order. You have to go through some different procedures. So I just wanted to mention that. I've been downtown on 2nd Street for 27 years now, and we sanitize our office. And I think as time has gone on, the risk of surface infection has they've kind of analyzed that. That's not the greater risk, but the biggest risk is the droplets coming from conversation in close proximity. So I've noticed Springfield too has been very mindful, as David was saying, of respecting and honoring the protections that we need to maintain to keep everyone healthy. So thanks, Mayor, for letting me jump in there for just those comments.
No, appreciate you sharing that insight. The one thing with regards to, I think Rick touched on it, and Dave, you mentioned about the growth of your business or how busy you've been being an essential service. I know one of the challenges is for people that had to close, the employees are no longer there, and then when you call them back, the challenges to fulfill those positions. And then from your aspect, Dave, I didn't know if you had to expand to get additional help, but how, from the employee standpoint, how difficult it is as a business proprietor to really manage that through this whole pandemic when you're trying to bring people back and or expand and finding the individuals that want to work, especially when they're not sure if they want to be out, and that's one of the challenges, but also getting the people that you need to provide those services. So David, you want to answer, and then Rick?
Yeah, so we really, when it started and we couldn't do some of our Fridays at 5 and whatnot, we actually cut 1 hour off of our times that were open. So for the first 2 months, basically, my wife and I, Danielle and I, have been the ones that have done the whole thing. So times it gets hectic and times it wasn't. What happened is most of our other people, we have one other full-time person that we continue to pay full-time. She'd work from home. Every now and then she would come in, but we got the PPP loan as well, and that allowed us to pay her her full salary. Everybody else was part-time. They worked 2 or 3 or 4 hours a week, so they're either retired or they have other jobs, so that it really didn't impact them at all. And we anticipate when we're able to start doing some of these things again that we'll obviously bring all those back that want to come back, because we think we're a family. Our customers are family, our employees are family, and that's been, I think, why we've been successful. But yeah, so it's just basically Danielle and I until this last couple of weeks where Emily has come back full time in the store. So it's we did what we had to do basically to keep it going.
Good, thank you. And Rick, if you'd like to talk about the challenges that you did talk to a certain degree, but on the employees and the expansion of that and working through that whole process.
Well, I'll tell you, we had a staff meeting prior to our reopening, and not a employee one without hesitation. They all volunteered to want to come back to work. They were excited to come back to work to continue the good things we do with the VFW. And prior to that, while we was doing our curbside services on Tuesdays and Fridays, it wasn't for our employees volunteering their time, members and officers, who 100% completely volunteered their time to enable us to do what we did. We still not want to be here today, continue to be open like we did. So, we got a great group of employees that, consider family. We're all family. We're close. And, if it wasn't for them, VFW would not be successful or been able to be open today. So my heart and my thanks goes out to them completely. And to Joe, he keeps us on the straight and narrow, keeps us up to date legally, not to step on our toes. So thank you for everything he does, and the rest of the officers, the VFW, the members, and as well, again, heartfelt thanks to all the employees for the VFW.
And Mayor, you've been very helpful in putting out, your informational emails to aldermen, and I've forwarded several of those directly to the VFW officers. I'm an officer also, but the operational officers, and Rick, Chris Brooks, Rick, he's follows up on how do you do the application process to have the tent outside and to go in that direction. And so, Mayor, your staff have been as helpful as they can in putting out broad-based information for everyone to grab hold of to know how to go forward. In fact, I sent the same information to Dave Anderson last weekend on the rules for outdoor dining, the temporary rules for outdoor drinking and dining, socializing. So,
and I will say, Todd,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, Todd Oliver is wonderful to work with. He is always available, very informative. Obviously, with our move coming up, he's given me step by step what we need to do. So just kind of a shout out to him. I really appreciate working with Todd.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Todd Oliver he handles all the liquor license, video gaming. So he's a busy person. He does have now we finally were able to get him some support. So as a department of 2, but the other one is communications director, Julia Fevert's a department of 1. She does have 2 camera guys, but as far as communications going out, if anybody's interested in COVID updates, and it doesn't matter if it's the city of Springfield, you should go to our website, springfield.il.us. And there's a COVID page, and it has links to the federal government, state government. But as Alderman McMenamin pointed out, what's happening locally, especially with the restaurant guidelines and the guidelines in general that were established through the Illinois Department of Public Health. And one thing I should clarify is with regards to the outdoor seating, there's no food requirement because now it's opened up to the bars. And so there's no requirement, if someone wants to just sit out at your establishment and have a drink, they can do that. Of course, there's guidelines with the seating. And just so you know, how that works is for the enforcement on compliance with businesses, or we have complaints if it's general public, like gatherings in the streets, we get calls about to our police department to go break up gatherings. And so that's complaint driven. Same with the fire department. So they'll go into a business, and how it's worked with the outdoor seating is there's no more than 6 individuals to a table. And so they have to be 6 feet apart. And that's how the capacity will be driven based on the allowable space and the parking that's available. But I'd ask everybody to weigh in on this, if you would, with regards to the outdoor seating. I think David mentioned it, the need, or maybe it's deemed that we go more permanent. But if you'd like to share your insights on going to the outdoor seating capacity, anything you'd like to share with regards to that and the value of that, because when I shared it with downtown Springfield, I said, with restaurants downtown or any restaurant or bar, we should be looking at this as an opportunity to maybe create a new atmosphere to the services you provide. So if you'd like to weigh in on that, Rick, you want to start, and we'll just go to Dave and Alderman Fulgenzi and Annette and go around the horn there. That'd be great. So Rick?
I want to say thank you, Mayor. The transition to go into the outdoor dining and seating was actually a fairly easy transition. So I want to thank you and the city for making that seamless process. I was in contact with, I believe it was Jim Heron with Department of Public Works, keep me up to date, give me all the applications and paperwork I need. And it was just, really, honestly, I couldn't believe how easy it was. So thank you for that. And outdoor seating, I think it's going to open a new avenue for VFW as far as the opportunity to be not so much in the bar, be able to come outside, especially on nice nights, enjoy a drink, the breeze. And that's something we're going to looking forward to try to make it more permanent, especially through the better weather months, between March and November, that we're going to queue into. If it's something to make it a structure that's more permanent, or we keep trying to do the tent permits, it's 180 days. And we're going to learn the process from there. And this is our first week open. So it's going to be a nice learning curve for us. And of course, as we all do, most of us, the VFW, especially members of the military, we like to adapt and overcome. So I'm looking forward to see how this works out with this outdoor seating and expand from there and go from there and see how it works.
Great. Thanks. Dave?
Yeah, I obviously I would like to see it be a little bit more a permanent situation. But we don't need a tent. I think I can, with the space in front of our store, if we decide to go ahead and do it, I could probably get 30 people maybe out front. We've got an overhang over part of it, and then but I mean, if it were to become permanent, then I could see then going to permanent in front of the new space will be in a more permanent iron fencing and that type of thing, where it's just kind of blocked off. I know that's not a requirement for this on the temporary situation, but I think since it's in front of my building, let me just ask you this, if you know, do I need a what do you call it, sidewalk cafe permit to do that?
Right. The number to call would be Public Works, and I'm glad Rick mentioned that. Nate Bottom and TJ Heaviside has done great work putting the process in place on short order, but Public Works 789-2255, that's the general number, again, 789-2255. And it is driven, the sidewalk cafe, you have to have enough area for people to get through or accessible for a wheelchair. And then so what downtown they've done is added a parklet, what they call a parklet, which is an extension of the sidewalk. And we're able to allow tables that way. And then, or access, even in the road, if we can shut off the road or the parking lot. In your case, we'd be able to do the parking aspect, but it's based on the number of spaces and the square footage allowable for that dining or the beverages. Dave's in a unique area because it is a strip mall. So if you're in that situation and you're kind of impeding on other space within the strip mall, we prefer that you ask your neighbors and move forward in that direction, so there's a clear understanding how that would be a shared space. But again, Public Works be the contact on that.
Okay. Appreciate it.
And then Alderman Fulgenzi, if you'd like to speak to, from your standpoint, I don't know if you expanded outdoor seating. I know you had some seating arrangements there. If you'd like to shed, if you want it more, how you've done it, if you've accessed in greater detail than what you have currently. So if you're on mute, sorry. If you'd unmute.
Am I on?
Yeah, on the out. Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. We added some tables on the east side of the building by the Route 66 gas station. And the only thing I'd like to see is some of the ordinances relax as far as beer gardens. Like we have a place on the west side of the building that is separated by a driveway. And I'd like to see that to where we can just use that, because it's been here for 40 years. And but we'll see what happens on that regard. And Annette, do you have any suggestions?
Well, I just say, they have always had an outdoor picnic area, and they've had some things they're trying to improve on that patio area. So I don't think they've really got too many tables out right now, but I think hopefully it'll look a little bit nicer, and this is a good opportunity. Well, you're a little slower too, I think, to do that work on the restaurant. Something I would add is too that I'm curious, Mayor, have you guys looked at all? The governor just passed or signed the bill to allow alcohol cocktails to be delivered or picked up. And there's always the ability for a community to be more stringent and not allow it if they didn't want to. But I was curious if you thought about that as well.
Yeah, actually, we did do a declaration. That was one of the emergency declarations we did to allow pick up with your food order was the allowable item of packaged liquor. And so we will take a look at the bill that was just passed. So the governor, saw that opportunity to make that of a more permanent, as we're talking about temporary, with the dining as the outdoor seating, making those permanent, as one area that was from, the cities made that step to make it temporary because of the pandemic, but there's the opportunity to make it more permanent. And so we'll continue to look at those services. And again, with the outdoor seating, we waived a lot of the fees. Well, we did waive the fees associated with that. And then the permitting processing, ease those so we can get the outdoor seating happening more exponentially and make it faster. But I didn't know, Annette, if you'd like to share anything else with regards to phase 3, that kind of a unique situation that you might be aware of that might be helpful for people that might be watching.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of things that are still unknown with phase 3. We're kind of working through the kinks, but yeah, there are some issues that maybe folks in the restaurant business, bar business, maybe haven't heard yet, but little things like your customers shouldn't be going into the restaurant or into the bar other than to use the restroom facilities. So they need to take orders out at the tables. They're trying to keep people from congregating inside. Wearing masks is important, and I know that I would just say too, for people who are vulnerable, maybe a bar isn't the best place to go, because that is one place where you can't really wear a mask if you're drinking. And then there's also an intermixing of people from households. So, for a lot of healthy folks that are not concerned, but if you're vulnerable, I think that maybe a bar somewhere you might want to consider staying away from now. But, live music's allowed again. So, I think that's good. I think as we get more and more back to normal, as things get phased in, it's easy to forget that the risk is still out there. So I would just encourage everybody to still realize it's still there. We should all still be cautious, wear our our masks and our PPE when we can. I know it's hard for me. I don't leave the house since I'm working from home these days. So whenever I venture out, it's like I forget myself, like got to grab my mask. So, and the other day I went to Walmart and the one-way aisles, I was totally spaced out. Didn't even notice the arrows on the floor. My husband's like, "Hey, you're going the wrong way." So, it's a new normal for us all. We've got to figure it all out. But I think as the businesses get phased back in, everybody's doing a good job trying to, do their best to comply, I think. Everybody wants to keep everybody healthy in our community. The health department's doing a great job of educating. The county's pretty much just complaint driven as well. And, for folks who need to expand or, have outdoor seating or serve alcohol outdoors that maybe don't have that capacity in the county, we're utilizing our temporary permits for that service for those companies, or those businesses. So if folks are in the unincorporated areas, they should reach out to our staff, Trustee Harris of the county, to talk about what's required. So I also know that our health department, just to let everybody know, is also actively working with nursing homes in our community. That is one of the most important things, the most vulnerable group. We don't want to see what happened out here in Sherman happen again. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of lives in that nursing home. So, I just encourage folks to, reach out to the health department if you have any questions. And then also the state has a helpline if you have questions about any of the guidelines that are out there for businesses, as well as financial programs. And that helpline is 1-800-252-2923. And another thing that I think is interesting that I find a lot of folks who are entrepreneurs or, contractual employees who aren't usually eligible for unemployment, aren't aware that they can get the pandemic unemployment assistance. So, and a lot of folks as well, like college kids who may have worked at school, may not think they can get anything. And if they go on and they apply at the Department of Employment Security, they can also get, maybe they don't qualify for the normal benefit, but they'll get that extra, that $600 that's available. So I think that's important for folks to know that might be struggling, and all of that would be retroactive too. So, so any small business owner who wasn't aware that they could get that benefit, and the system got up May 11th. So for small businesses to apply for that, that have had to be closed, I would encourage them to, go on IDES's website and sign up. You first have to, just a little trick there, you need to first fill out for regular unemployment. And then, whenever they have to have a denial before you can apply for that pandemic unemployment. assistance for sole proprietor and contractual folks. So just some helpful info.
Well, thanks. And then Alderman McMenamin, I didn't know if you want to touch on the temporary aspect of outdoor seating or moving it to permanent, or, you know, the pickup of alcohol, you know, like we have, or anything you'd like to weigh in on that aspect of more permanency or anything else?
Very briefly, because we're almost out of time, I agree with all the comments that have been made about it's beneficial to continue the waivers and the allowances for outside dining and beverages. I think this virus may be around for a while, and it may have a comeback, and we may have new forms of virus that come out. So I think we have to continue to allow businesses to do their business in new and innovative ways to keep the revenue coming in. And I guess that, but we do have to be mindful of the neighborhoods around those establishments, and we have to be careful about music in the outdoor areas and the cleanup. And so we have to keep up our guard to make sure that there aren't unintended impacts that are adverse to our neighborhoods. Thanks, Mayor.
Well, thank you. We did have one question come in. Someone asked about, since we're talking about restaurants a lot, asked about the Portillo's is coming and any plans to alleviate the traffic out there. And that was announced last week that Portillo's is coming. It's a Chicago-based restaurant, but now national, but they do have, can be traffic congested. And where they're located is right out of Park South, which is right off Veterans Parkway. You have Walmart out there, there's a lot of congestion. And they have looked at, they are alleviating the traffic flow because of a right in, right out. Now you do that with entrances, so it's kind of a one directional traffic. And then in the back of the building, they are going to tear down that Walgreens on that corner and actually rebuild. And what's pretty exciting is during a pandemic, you have a national company that made the announcement to build in Springfield. That shows how strong our economy is, and it's largely due to the small businesses that we have and, you know, our local support. And Portillo's recognized that, and they're going to build a new state of the model with regards to a post-COVID facility. It's changing how they had previously built because you have to take in consideration the spacing and everything else now. So it's a strange dynamic that we're in. But the one thing I would like to throw out to everybody is if you'd share with us the cost of COVID from, I think Alderman McMenamin brought up, from a precautionary standpoint. You know, now we have to wipe off things. We have to do other things to keep our employees safe, our customers safe. Can you just real quickly elaborate on the costs as a business owner? You know, Dave, again, if you want to start, go to Alderman Fulgenzi and Rick, and the costs that it actually has taken on the precautionary measures you had to put in place to continue those operative services.
Well, from our standpoint, the costs haven't been that prohibitive at all. Before all of this started, my wife had purchased a lot of disinfectant, a lot of soap, a lot of different things that we had prior to it, and we haven't gotten through it all. But you know, we do disinfect the doors and the door handles and the jambs and the counters and the keypads and all of that. As far as masks are concerned, it's just been primarily she and I, and we've had customers that have made us masks, which has been kind of fun. But we also have had some physicians that have given us some masks that they had. So from our standpoint, there haven't been really any increased costs at this particular point in time. As more employees come back, then yes, we'll have to supply the masks per the instructions and those type of things. If we do the outdoor seating, obviously there'll be more disinfecting in the bathrooms and everything else. So right now we've been fine.
Alderman Fulgenzi, would you like to share on any additional costs due to COVID, or if you haven't quite opened up yet? I didn't know if you had experienced anything of magnitude.
Yeah, we've got additional costs basically because there's so much more that we have to do. For one thing, hamburgers going up maybe 200%, you know, and I don't think it's right to adjust your prices right now. I know some people have, some people, I mean, you have to, but I've been trying to keep the prices steady at the same place, even though, and we've absorbed the cost, and we're trying to keep everybody employed and just stay functioning through the drive up. And so far, we've been successful doing that, but there is going to be an added cost when it comes to the sanitizing. I don't know if we'll open up inside when they say it's safe to do that, just for the simple reason that I'm just not sure that I want to expose everybody to that. And we'll see what happens.
How about you, Rick?
Oh, of course, cost has gone up. We had used to doing all of our business indoors, and then we had a transition to doing outdoors. So we, incurred the cost of the tent, setting up the tent, things of that nature. As far as sanitizing wise and disinfectant, I mean, being in the restaurant bar business, that's practices we always use to keep everything disinfected and cleaned. We just emphasizing on a little bit more. Of course, we have a sanitizing table outside, so to wipe everything down once, guests leave the table, and so it gets immediately sanitized afterwards. But I mean, sanitizing cost hasn't gone up. It's just been more the cost to adapt to be able to transition to that outdoor seating is really the main cost.
Thank you. Annette, you want to add anything to any of that, or and then Alderman McMenamin?
I just want to add that there's also each of the businesses need to do wellness screenings, and they also need to provide training for their employees. So there are some resources online at the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunities website, kind of a checklist of things to cover with your employees, just to make sure everybody, we assume people know sometimes and they don't. So just to run through with your employees when you start, and then also, requirements for wellness screenings at the beginning of the shift and then mid-shift, just so folks are aware of those. Just make sure that your employees are healthy when they start and, aren't ill and potentially spreading the virus. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Alderman McMenamin. I actually have a question that you might be able to answer if you'd prefer this. And this is non-COVID related. Is that all right? Or would you like to add anything real quick on that subject?
Just that on a different angle for retirees, COVID has an unusual impact in that retirees, their income is pretty much predetermined. And so those retirement checks keep coming in, but there's no way to spend it. You don't go to restaurants, you didn't go to entertainment, you can't travel. So for retirees, there's been an accumulation of savings. And what I'm seeing is people are undertaking projects that they're put off for years. And that's why, in part, why our hardware stores are so jammed. And so that can be a positive repercussion, but it's all in flux, Mayor.
Well, thank you. And actually, this real quick question, I think I know the answer, but it's asking about high volume traffic and speeding along MacArthur Boulevard, especially the stretch between Lawrence and South Grand. And because there's a large number of pedestrian traffic. And one of the things with COVID, we are looking to, I talked to Nate Bottom actually before this call, on how when we do road improvements, make it more bikeable. Even if it's, we're not planning for the bike lane, people are going to ride on that road. So is there a way we can do striping to identify a little bit of space for bikes? But on the MacArthur Boulevard, I know you're in tune to that, bordering your ward, but anything you'd like to weigh in on the high traffic and speed happening? Alderman McMenamin.
Too complex a question to answer in a short period of time.
That's a good answer, but we will have our police officers over there. We are working with the state to come through with the studies to upgrade MacArthur like it should be. That'll be a $20+ million project moving forward in that direction, but we'll take a number of years. Real quick, a couple other questions that came up before we close out. One was the disconnections on CWLP. It's important for people, if you can't make your payment, to contact City Water, Light and Power. You can call the general number at 789-2000, and they'll work with you on a payment plan. If you're a resident and have trouble paying, you can call Capital Township and ask for assistance. But again, call the general number of the utility and do a workout process. We're not disconnecting because of that. and that goes through June, I believe, and that's per the governor's order. There's no disconnections or no evictions during this time period. And even though we don't have to comply with it because that's for private sector utility companies, even though CWLP is a public sector, we decided to adhere to that order. And then the other item that did come in, what about businesses that are opening up early to inside seating? Regardless of the guidelines, what should they do? They should call public health because that's where it started. It's all about public health, keeping everybody safe. And you can call, the hotline is 321-2606. So if someone you feel is not being compliant or you're concerned about the health and welfare of others, you should call that hotline at 321-2606, or the general number for the County Public Health Department is 535-3100. So as far as the consequences, that was the second part of it. That's through, there's different measures. Us within the city operations, we can issue an ordinance violation notice. Again, that was an order I put forward when the pandemic started, because when the police, they were called by aldermen to go break up street parties. And when they went out there, they could ask people to comply, but there was no, if they didn't want to listen, there's no enforcement. So we did put in an ordinance violation notice whereby if someone does not comply with the COVID social distancing or the orders that are in place, the police officer can write a citation up to $500. So that's kind of the motivating factor. But when we've done this, most people do comply. They do listen because they're looking after the health and welfare of one another. And that's what it's all about for this pandemic. So with that, we'll just, any final comments in 60 seconds or less, Dave, and we'll just go around the horn real quick. Dave, anything else you'd like to add?
Just appreciate the opportunity, and thank you, Joe, for inviting me and for the dialogue we've had. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being part of it. We appreciate it, Dave, and thank you for being a small business owner in Springfield and what you do for our community.
Thank you.
Rick?
And I just want to thank the city for making this transition pretty seamless and possible for small businesses to be able to continue to operate and come out and see us on Old Jacksonville Road for dinners on Tuesdays and Fridays and enjoy a drink.
Yep. I heard they have great chicken too.
They do.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah, thank you for all you do. You do a lot for our community. And the most important thing is you recognize and, it's important that we, especially our young people, we see a lot of young people marching for Black Lives Matter. And the reason we can do that is due to our veterans. So it's important that the young people become engaged with our veterans organization. How do we all work together and recognize the value that each person in our community brings to makes our community great? And so we really appreciate what the veterans do to recognize the efforts of the past that allow us the freedoms we live under today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Annette, any closing comment you'd like to make?
I think you had the question about complaints, and there's also the Illinois Attorney General's office on social distancing complaints is the contact there. And then if you're a worker and you feel like you're not being protected at your job, you can also contact OSHA. And then there's also a workers' rights unit at the Illinois Attorney General's office as well. So.
Thank you very much. And thanks for joining us too, Rick. And then Alderman Fulgenzi, any closing comments?
I just want to thank you for hosting this thing, and I appreciate all the information that everybody's given us. And I just want to make sure everybody stays safe, and we continue to support the restaurants and businesses in our areas.
Well, thank you, Alderman Fulgenzi. Alderman McMenamin?
The same here. Thank you, VFW on 2211 Old Jacksonville Road, and Wine Emporium, Corkscrew at 2613 Chatham Road near Montvale, and all the fine businesses throughout Springfield that are dealing with this unique situation in the best possible way. And Mayor, thank you for another real positive Facebook Live.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you participating, all the participants and the viewers for sending in your questions. If you didn't get a chance to do so, you can email feedback@springfield.il.us. Be sure to visit our webpage at springfield.il.us for updates on COVID and, again, the guidelines and everything. I'd be remiss if I didn't wish my mother-in-law a happy birthday. I hope you have a great day. You know, we have to keep our social distance, but we will be treating her to dinner to some extent. But we appreciate all she's done for our family. But what's important, and we all realize this, is the value of our time. And as we move forward together, it's important that we value that and we work together to support one another in all our aspects of our day. And it's important that we make today better than yesterday, and then tomorrow better than today. And if we do that, Springfield's future is bright, and we really appreciate everybody staying focused and really respecting one another, understanding one another as we not only make it through this pandemic, through the civil unrest, and through our challenging economic times, but we will make it better when we work together. So thank you for everybody for taking that step and moving forward to the future. So I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next Wednesday at noon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mayor. Thank you,
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mayor.
everybody.